when I saw they booed Russ in Seattle, I kind of rolled my eyes when he came out. I'm like, are you guys, this guy was part of 8-10 win seasons and a championship. Your franchise was so bad before he showed up. I get why they did it. I get why they booed. This is how it works. I do have to, the fans did it right, man. Like, your job is to create a home field advantage. It's not to create a welcoming home environment for Russell Wilson. And they helped the Seahawks win that game yesterday. So no beef with the Seahawks fans for me. I have rethought my position on booing him. They helped them win. Like, I think Seattle fans helped them win that game. Go ahead.
Also think the time really matters. If this had been 2 years removed and it's week 6, are they booing him? Probably not. You're probably getting a standing ovation. Like, where was it this year when Freddie Freeman started crying at home plate?
Yeah.
Now, a little different, but you know what I mean. Actually, not that different. They won the World Series. He's their best player. This, to me, is so fresh. Under no circumstances, in my opinion, and I'm not saying you're clearly not, but I think most people's first reaction that aren't super close to it are like, that's a little fucked up. I never thought it was fucked up because it's week 1. He played this wasn't a one-sided deal where Pete kicked him to the curb. It was also Russ saying, get me out of here. And it was pretty clear that he was. Now, you could argue he was only saying that because Pete wouldn't let him cook, but I appreciated it. And I also think they brought those cats back because, let's face it, like, part of when Richard came here, it was like, fuck you to John, fuck you to Pete. Last year when what's his name got cut, that's now on Bobby Wagner, Richard and all those guys were outspoken about they're always doing this crap, never treating these guys. That happened like 3 months ago. They were talking crap, but they're like, oh, Russ is in town. We'll come. We'll raise the flag.
Your enemy is
even
my
like
enemy.
Pete.
Your enemy is my enemy. I think part of the booing, it wasn't just the way he left. I think it's that for years, everyone in that area had been hearing Russ is difficult, Russ is high maintenance, Russ is a pain in the ass. And all these guys that they liked, they'd heard enough people say it that they were just looking for a reason to turn on him, and they did. And I think the crazy thing about it, Seattle looked like the same Seattle. That's the thing with Pete Carroll. And, the Niners obviously play them this week. Like, Pete caught a lot of heat over the course of the back end of Russ's career because they weren't running an offense that was taking advantage of him and let him cook and analytics and blah, blah, blah. Pete Carroll, 119 and 73, over a 60% win percentage in Seattle after he went 97 and 19 at USC. And the one thing you cannot deny about Pete Carroll, his teams they all look the same. They fucking play hard as shit. And when you talk to coaches, as you do, as I have, you've been around them, like, they say it's a cliche, but it's true, man. Like, the first thing they always say is, like, before we got to get the playbook in, we got to establish a certain way that we play. And Seattle, like, Pete's teams all look the same, and that looked like another Pete team. And my one of the many takeaways from Monday Night Football was, like, going to Seattle's not going to be any cakewalk. Now, it's probably not. It's going to be hard for it to be as live as it was Monday night.
That's as live as it gets.
But I do think, like, the fact that they won that game, now they've just it just creates a little momentum for them from an organization standpoint. And that team is going to make it easy, I think, for their crowd to get into it, especially when they're on defense.
Well, I think one thing you saw moving forward, obviously the Niners playing this week, is Geno does not suck. Now, is that one of Geno's better games? We'll see. But to me, I'm watching that game.
We'll see. I mean, I think he was like 26 of 29 or something crazy.
Yeah, but he hasn't really played that much. And a lot of the stuff, like when I watched them play on offense, it looked like McVay Shanahan. A lot of easy stuff. Now, there were some push the ball down the field. Their guys made it. DK made a couple awesome plays. But there was a lot of the boot stuff where he's dumping it off. Like the Liam Cohen.
He was 82%, John.
Is it Liam Cohen? That's not their guy. Huh? Shane Waldron is their guy.
Cohen is the guy that went to
college. He's a Catholic Liam Cohen. It's all the same. They're now McVay's minions, which are essentially Kyle's minions that run the same kind of quarterback-friendly offense. They do have talent. Like that can't be disputed. Offensively, DK is a star. Lockett is good. And the guy resurrected his career. Rashad Penny I thought he looked pretty good last night. He runs hard. He breaks tackles. And back to what I said about Geno, is he a top 20 starting quarterback? Of course not. Is there a chance that he's somewhere 25 to 32? Like, he's not a backup, but he's just at the bottom end of the starter, but you can get 5 or 6 pretty good games out of him throughout the season?
But isn't 25 to 32 backups?
Well, I mean, that's the Baker. Yeah, I mean, but they end up starting.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, because he was better than 25-32 last night. Although the one rolling left, throw it out to the right, cross the body, jump ball was
A little lucky.
hell of a decision. That ball got PBU'd.
I like Disley.
Yeah, I mean, I think their linebackers look really good, right? We'll talk about the matchup for Trey in a second, but Jordan Brooks and
Their
Cody
defensive line has been shitty for a while. They were flying around last night. Now, I think that they're going to give that effort week one or, a week in, week out, they can downplay it, and coaches are king of this, right? When they go up against a famous player, when they go up against like the team that they left, whenever it's just kind of about the coach always tries to deflect, not about me, about my guys, right? You can't tell me that Pete hasn't been approaching this thing like a Super Bowl the last week and a half at practice.
Yeah. Yeah. Building
in the
up
building
from an energy standpoint. Yeah.
Because they couldn't have played any harder. Because I thought Denver was playing pretty hard, and Seattle was even on a different level. I didn't think like Denver was like going like their guys were. I mean, their running backs were running hard. Their wide receivers were playing hard.
They couldn't tackle.
Who?
Denver.
Well, yeah, one of the knocks of Denver, they didn't do shit all preseason. They ran a country club.
It showed. Their coach didn't know how to manage the game. They didn't know how to. None of them had the internal clock on how long a play clock is.
It's part on Russ. Like, what was that? What was that last drive with him? Like, he was in charge. Like,
John, sorry, I'll bite my tongue. Go ahead. I'm so fired up on that game last night.
I mean, he's got every offensive coordinator in his life fired.
Oh, time to bring that list back. Actually, good call. It's going to do it again this year. The reason I'm stopping is because we're going to talk about Russ later, but it's part of for the sake of the Rams, for the sake of the Cardinals, for the sake of the 49ers. It doesn't, as you said to me before we started, each team lost. The Niners lost to the Bears, not good, but could have been worse in that Seattle, you don't think is going to win this division, and they're the team in first place today. I do think it's not ideal.
I think we know they're not going to win the division. Right?
I mean, I thought Denver shot themselves in the foot 27 times and still only lost by 1. So that's not great for Seattle, but could have been worse for the Niners, the Rams, and the Cardinals this weekend if one of the others had won and really, put themselves one game up.
The Rams play the Falcons this week. That's a W. Lose me?
No, you're good. I got you. Keep going.
Okay.
Rams play the Falcons. That's a W.
Well, I got the Rams with a win, so they'll be 1-1. And obviously the Niners play Seattle, and I got the Cardinals starting 0-2. So I think
play the Raiders this week.
The Cardinals play the Raiders and are pretty significant, like immediately back-to-back weeks, guy. One at home and one on the road. Basically a touchdown underdog. Last week, I think it ended at 6.5. Right now, it's at 6. Would you be shocked if that number gets 6.5? I mean, people think the Cardinals, not people, the gamblers, they stink. It's hard to watch them and just everything that's gone on to be very bullish on the Cardinals. Like, say one thing about Pete, he has much more control of his operation right now than the Cardinals. Now, I would say his team's not as good because of the quarterback. You'd rather have Kyler, like, maybe Geno's actually cooler during the week. Geno actually seems like a pretty likable guy, actually.
Extremely.
Yeah, Kyler.
They wrote me off. I didn't write him back.
Kyler probably drive you nuts, but there's no disputing who's the better player is. That feels kind of like a ticking time bomb right now. I mean, it did in the offseason. Now that we're going, we're like, whoa. Yeah, you start 0-2. What the hell happens?
Well, then they play the Rams week 3.
Okay, he start 0-3.
They play the Panthers week 4 on the road.
Tough
Remember,
game.
we talked about it. They got their ass kicked by the Panthers last year.
Philly
at Seattle.
Jeez, I mean, this
Saints. We'll see. I mean, Saints. It's like a 3-point line with the Bucks this weekend. At Minnesota, Seattle, Rams, Niners, Chargers.